What we're going to do in this lesson is we're going to learn how to interpret and create circle graphs. And so what we're going to do is we're actually going to break this one into two lessons because it's a little bit longer. In the first part, I'm going to show you how to interpret the circle graph, and we're going to take a look at an example as to how we would actually calculate the numbers before we even created the circle graph. And in the part two, I'm actually going to show you how you take those numbers and how to accurately construct a circle graph that is representative of a group of data. So what we've got here is we've got a very simple circle graph on a population. So sometimes it's referred to as a pie chart, and what this is a visual representation of 100% of the population. And what they did is they broke down that 100% of the population into smaller chunks to show how much each of the population is represented by groups of different age people. So, for example, if they were to look at what percentage of the population is young adult, we can just look at this little legend down here and see that this piece of the pie here represents young adults, and that is 38%. And if we wanted to look and see how many are represented by children, well, we can see that that is 7%. And obviously, the higher the percentage, the more of the pie that it takes up. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is, obviously, if you take all of these percentages, they have to add up to 100%. And, you know, that's pretty easy to understand that the entire circle would encompass 100%. So now let's take a look at a little poll that we did and see how that would apply to a circle graph. All right, so what we did is we went around and we asked a number of students what color their eyes were to determine, what percentage of the students had blue, brown, green, or gray eyes. And what we can see here is if we take a look, we can see that there are 12 students that have blue eyes, 24 with brown, 8 with green, and 6 with gray. So now what we want to do is we say, okay, well, if this is how many students have it, what percentage of these students have these color eyes? So let's take a look at the first one. As we can see that blue eyes, there's 12 students that have it. Now before we can even calculate out what percent that of the students have blue eyes, we first need to know how many students we actually polled. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to add these together to find out how many total students we have. And when we add this up, we can see that there are, in fact, 50 students. So that means that there are 12 students out of 50 that have blue eyes. And since we know that this line right here really means divided by, and what we remember about calculating percentage, we can simply say that 12 divided by 50 is going to give us a decimal that is going to ultimately translate into our percentage. So let's see take a look and see what that looks like on the next page. All right, so just carrying on from what we just did on the last page, we know that we had 12 students, and if we take that and we divide it by 50, and then if we calculate that out, it will give us a decimal, and that decimal will translate into our percentage. So let's start off by taking a look at this decimal. So we're going to take our calculator here, and we are going to take 12, and we're going to divide it by 50, and it's going to give us our decimal. And in this case, our decimal is 0.24. Now, keep in mind, if we were to read 0.24, it really means 24 hundredths. So that would be represented as a fraction 24 over 100. And since we know that percentage means out of 100, we can simply say that this here can translate into 24%. So we're going to leave it in the decimal form because we are going to have to use this decimal to help us calculate out what percentage of the circle is going to be representative of this. Well, let's take a look at the rest of the data here. Okay, so when we do our calculations, we can see that if you have 24 students out of 50 that have brown eyes, you have 0.48 or 48 hundredths, or as we know, it's going to translate to 48%. If you have 8 out of 50, you're going to have 0.16 or 16%, and if you have 6 out of 50, you're going to have 0.12, or you could have, or as you know, 12%. Okay, in order to draw a good circle graph, we first have to understand a little something about angles and about angles within a circle. Now we know that angles are measured in degrees, and that's that little symbol right here. Okay, and what that is it shows like how big that angle is. But when we're dealing with circles, we're also very aware of the fact that if we were to take the circle and we were to create 4 right angles, that would be, and each of those angles is 90 degrees, that is actually going to add up to a total of 360 degrees. So what we're trying to do is if we're going to take this number here, which we know is going to be 24%, and say, well, how much of this circle is 24%? What we need to know is what degree angle is 24% of 360. So let's do that right now. So the way that we calculate that out, if we can remember, if we wanted to find out a percentage of something, we simply take our decimal, which in this case is 0.24, and we multiply it by our 360 degrees. And then we're going to just take our calculator here, we're going to pop it up, and we're going to say, hey, if we took 0.24 and we multiplied that by 360, that's going to equal 86.4 degrees. So that means that 24% of the circle is the equivalent of an angle of 86.4 degrees. Well, because we want to deal with whole numbers when we're constructing these circle graphs, what we're going to do is we're going to round to the nearest whole number. In this case, it would be 86 degrees. So we're going to put it up here as an approximation. So we're going to see equals approximately 86 degrees. Let's see how the rest of the numbers computed out. Okay, according to our calculations here, when we rounded to the nearest whole number, we came up with our varying degrees. 86 degrees, 173, 58, and 43. And just to ensure that these are accurate, what we're going to do is we're actually going to add them up, and they should add up to 360 degrees. So we just take 86, and we add it to 173, and we add it to 58, and we add it to 43. And that gives us a total of 360 degrees. Okay, we're geniuses. All right, now let's take a look at how you're actually going to take this and put this into a circle graph. Okay, so just as a disclaimer, this is not going to be to scale. In the next lesson, I'm going to show you how to accurately do this. But for now, we're just going to use our imaginations a little bit. So what I've got is I've got the data up here, and you can see clearly that like if we were to take blue, for example, we can see that the number of students that have blue eyes are 12. Which means that there are 12 out of 50 students, which means 24% of the students in this group have blue eyes, and that translates to 86 degree angle. And that's because 24% of a 360 degree angle, which would be a complete circle, is 86 degrees. So what we would do is we would actually take our protractor, and we don't have a protractor right here right now. I'm going to do that in the next lesson. And we're going to measure out our angle. So if this is the start point, and then if we were to measure it out, and we'll say it's just slightly less than 90 degrees because it's 86. And what that means is that this angle here is going to be 86 degrees, and therefore that's going to be 24%, which is going to be blue-eyed children. Our next angle is going to be kids with brown eyes. And this is a 173 degree angle. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off right here at this point here, and we are going to measure going in this direction 173 degrees. And we know that if we were to go straight across, that would be 180 degrees. So we're going to go just slightly less than 180 degrees to right here, and we can say that this angle here is 173 degrees, and that represents 48% of the population that have brown eyes. All right, now our second to last one is going to be green, And, and we know that we're dealing with a 58-degree angle here. What we're going to do is we would measure across, and it's slightly larger than 45 degrees. So we'll be measuring across, and we'd say that it is something that looks like this. And we'd say this here is a 58-degree angle, and that is 16% of the population has green eyes. Now, because there's only 4 sets of data, we've already done the first 3 angles, we automatically know that whatever's left over has to be 43 degrees. And therefore, we can just quickly draw that in as a 43-degree angle, and that is approximately 12% of the students that have gray eyes. Now, this is a very crude example, but this is exactly how you calculate it out. In the next section, what I'll do is I will actually demonstrate how to properly use a protractor to draw your lines in.